This is 2023 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Do I have a motion on the Clerk General?
Yes.
And yes. And the requisitions?
Yes, I approve that too. Okay, I'll make a motion on the requisitions.
Okay, and yes. And the first item, I guess it's technically the second item on the agenda. Oh, you have additions
I
too,
do.
don't
I
you?
have a few resolutions that are not on the consent agenda. The first one is a resolution to enter into a settlement agreement and release with the WO Brisbane for the final reimbursement related to construction of the Village on the Green pump station and force main.
So moved.
And yes.
The next one I have is a resolution to administer disciplinary action against an employee within the Human Services Department.
So moved.
And yes.
The last one is a resolution to declare support in the designation of the full-time judgeship in the Lebanon Municipal Court.
So moved.
And yes.
That's all that I have.
Tiff, you have anything?
No. I didn't.
Okay. So the next item.
Did you do the requisitions?
Yeah.
Yes.
You did? Okay.
The next item then is a public hearing on the rezoning application of Francis W. Logan to rezone 3.63 acres of Harlan Township from RU residential to B2 community commercial business. Good morning.
Good morning. Michelle Tagmeyer, Warren County Building and Zoning. As stated, this is case number 2023-07 for Francis W. Logan, BL Companies, Dollar General. The township is Harlan. The address is on State Route 132. It is 87 acres. It's a large parcel. We're looking at just 3.630 acres of that parcel with 481 feet. It has not been divided yet. This is proposed until we see the outcome of this. The current zoning is RU. The future land use has it as agricultural, rural residential. The existing land use is agricultural, and the request is a B2 community commercial business. So of course the decision before you is a zone change from RU to B2. The Regional Planning Commission had their meeting on September 28th, and the Warren County Rural Zoning Commission had their meeting on October 11th. I'll get into those recommendations. This is an aerial map showing the location of the property. There is an aerial showing the entire parcel, and then of course the red box is just the area that is being proposed for the Dollar General. This is a notification map of everyone that was notified within 500 feet of the property. This is the zoning and flood map showing that there is no flood or stream setback in this area of where the proposed Dollar General would be located. Pre-2012 zoning, before 2012, the Warren County zoning had a designated large number of parcels in this area that were for B2. This was not one of those, but we did want to show those other areas where B2 had been proposed prior to 2012. Proposed zoning, again, is B2, and the B2 is encouraging business establishments in centralized locations to allow a wide range of uses that meet the needs of the community.
Can you back up for just a minute?
Yes, sir.
Are the areas that are in white there, were they all rezoned B2?
That's actually the village of Butlerville.
Okay, so now that we're not responsible for that zoning, and we didn't do that?
No, sir.
How is it zoned?
To be honest, I don't know what.
B2.
Is it B2?
My understanding is B2.
I don't know what
Okay.
Butlerville
I was
has.
just curious, thank you.
Okay. This is a comparison of the current zoning, which is RU, to the B2 that is proposed. The surrounding uses, and this was brought up at some previous meetings. As you'll notice, the Bark and Breakfast and Circle Tail are included in these. Both of those were presented as commercial businesses, but as you know, they are kennels, which is exempt from zoning, so it's an agricultural use. This is a comparison of the uses that could be in the RU, which is currently approved, and then the B2, which is proposed. Environmental features, it's just showing that there is some slight slope on that south side of that property. And then there is a narrative letter that I'm sure that the applicant or the applicant's real estate agent is here, and they will probably go over a lot of this in more detail. Just wanted to make you aware that the proposed development is located in a food desert for the local consumer, has been their stance on this. They feel that they are encouraging more fresh fruits and vegetables for the local community. And they're also stating that the nearest Kroger is 7 miles away, and that other stores are not in the immediate location that provide those services. And again, they'll go into more detail on their proposal. Again, this is just speaking again, we had talked about the Bark and Breakfast and some of those kennels in the area that actually are agricultural use. So future land use. Here's the future land use. As you can see, we do have number 1, which is vacant land. Number 2, which is currently used as a farm. And number 3, which is the old school, which is now Bright Acres Learning Academy. Those are areas that were shown for development. The subject site, of course, is on the south side of Butlerville, away from that. So here is our recommendation from Warren County Planning Commission. At its meeting on September 28th, the board had a tie vote, which of course is a denial. Harlan Township comments, we did receive an email from them stating that it is their unanimous opinion to please ask that you not allow the rezoning of the property and to keep it as residential. The Rural Zoning Commission, at their meeting, Ms. Haddix made the motion to deny. This was followed by their, what they did is they went through the issues for consideration. They looked at A, B, and D, which we'll go into detail in those in just a moment. But they looked at A, B, and D, and it was a unanimous vote to deny. So the decision-making considerations, again, the Rural Zoning Commission looked at A, B, and D. There is also some discussion on F and G, which we have highlighted for you as well. That's all I have at this time. I'm sure the applicant would like to speak. If there's any other questions for me, though, I can answer those now, or I can certainly come back.
Do you have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the applicant is here. Who's gonna come forward?
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Mark Jordan. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker Realty. I live at 146 North 2nd Street, Williamsburg, Ohio.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you represent,
And I am representing Webb Logan, who is the applicant. Okay. I have some slides. Oh, there we are. We're asking for the proposed zoning change to allow a Dollar General store near Butlerville. I want to say at this time that this store is a little bit different than the Dollar General stores that you may be familiar with in Goshen and Blanchester. This one will be 1,500 square feet larger than what Dollar General has been building in the past, that will allow them to have room to provide fresh fruits and vegetables. Now, you noticed in her presentation that Butlerville was identified as a food desert. I'm not sure it really is, but that is not Dollar General's terminology. That came from the Planning Commission as saying that there are currently no fresh fruits and vegetables available in that immediate area. Let's go to the next slide.
Why is that significant?
Pardon?
Why is that significant? I mean, so you would be offering something that's not there.
We're offering something that's not there.
Okay, so that's, you would like this change because you're providing a service that's not currently provided.
That's one of the basic reasons for the change, because there's and I'll go through the list of the merchandise that is available at a Dollar General store, and it's a convenience thing. Same as, you know, I hear the complaints that, you know, there's a Dollar General store down the road in either direction, 5 or 6 miles, but it's like gas stations. It's a convenience, and it's just something that Dollar General, in their planning, know that this store will be successful in that area simply because they offer a multitude of things that is not currently available directly in Butlerville.
Okay.
Okay, there's a map of Mr. Webb's parcel of 87 acres. We're asking for only 3.68 acres to be rezoned. Next slide. And this gives you an example of where the current Dollar General stores are located. And you can see to the north, there's nothing available from a Dollar General standpoint. And the spacing is pretty typical of what Dollar General does. On September 21st, there was a public meeting held at the Harlan Township Community Building, and at that meeting, Dollar General outlined their plans to purchase land and build the store. I wasn't at that meeting. I was hired later, but I'm told that the Harlan Township trustees at that time embraced the idea. There was no vote, but they all said that they liked the idea at that time.
How did they express that?
Pardon?
If they had no vote, how did they express their being in
They
favor?
expressed to the Dollar General people.
Oh, okay, so they did that privately?
It was at a public meeting.
So it's in a public meeting where they had recorded minutes and they were asked to express their opinion?
I don't think there were any minutes to that meeting.
Okay, well, how do we know this is true?
Mr. Webb was, Mr. Logan was there, I think. I wasn't at that. Oh, you weren't at that meeting?
One of the township trustees is present. I'm sure he'll be able to answer your
All right, and because we already heard that the township trustees unanimously don't want this.
That's correct, they changed their minds.
All right, well,
Okay.
maybe they'll help elucidate that to us then.
Okay. Next slide. Next slide. Here we go. Okay, this is the Warren County Comprehensive Plan, and as you can see, they are designating growth to the north of Butlerville. The red properties are the would work very well for a Dollar General store. But the rub is that that's owned by Mr. Martin, Mason, I'm sorry. He owns those parcels and he has no intention of selling. This is the first person I talked to in Butlerville about selling land. It's not for sale. He plans to continue farming it into future generations. And so the comprehensive plan just doesn't work in this particular case. Mr. Mason suggested I talk to Mr. Logan. I did. And then we entered into a contract to sell the 3.68 acres south of Butlerville. Next slide. That says basically the same thing. 1 and 2 are owned by Mr. Mason. It's not for sale. And so after we talked to him, we went south of Butlerville and were able to enter into a contract at that site. To the north is the village of Butlerville, and it is already zoned business. And to the north is the kennel, and it's exempt. It's agricultural. It is a business, but it is exempt because those are the exemptions under agricultural. To the east is the remainder of Mr. Logan's property, and to the south is, next slide please, to the south you can see there's The 132 slopes down, you have a creek there, and this property you cannot see that property, the subject property, from the properties that are on the other side of the creek. Okay? Next slide. We contend that we're filling a need. Right now, there's no store in Butlerville that offers fresh fruit and vegetables. In addition to fresh fruit and vegetables, Dollar General stores include a multitude of things. In addition to groceries and snacks and candy, cold and flu medicine, feminine hygiene products, Pampers and Huggies, things that you run out of when you don't expect to run out of, and you don't feel like driving a 10 or 12 mile round trip, are readily available in Butlerville. Okay, next slide. There are opponents, respectfully, but Dollar General isn't a restaurant. We don't provide live music. They don't sell pizzas. There's no deli. It's not a dog kennel. It's not a gas station. It's not a bakery. Dollar General will provide employment opportunities to local residents as well. And then the final slide are the tax implications. Currently, the 87 acres is in CAUV. The current tax annually is $1,090. The current tax per acre is $12.54. Current tax for the 3.6 acres amounts to $46.15. I spoke with someone in the auditor's office a couple of months ago.
By the way, is that for 6 months, or is that the annual tax?
That's the annual.
Okay.
And based on annual taxes per someone in the county auditor's office, based on 2022 rates, because we don't have the 2023 rates. We may have them now, I don't know. But anyway, the estimated tax, if they put a Dollar General store there, would be $30,130.
And most of that money would go to the schools and then also
Yeah,
to the township?
I think in every county in Ohio, the majority of the taxes go to the schools. And I honestly don't know how it would be split.
Usually about 70% to the schools.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Mr. Logan, do you have anything to say?
Basically,
Wait a second.
Sir, can we have you come in to the mic and identify you with your name and address, please?
good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Webb Logan, better known as Francis W. Logan, which is on the property. I am the owner of the property, and this has been presented to you. I also feel that as a resident of Harlan Township, that commercial business is needed in the township. To me, it's very evident that it's needed, because we just went through an election last month where they had a thing on the ballot to increase the property owners' taxes to pay for the Harlan Township FAR and EMST equipment, personnel, because they are a volunteer organization. It's got to the point to where they have problems of getting volunteers. They now need to be at least a part-time or full-time or some kind of full-time people to be able to get people to protect the citizens of the township. So therefore, I was willing to give up 3.6 acres of my ground if I can help the township to bring in some money to help to where the people, all the residents, don't have to pay for all of this extra needed expense that is really needed in the township. So this is where that I look at it from my standpoint, is I am looking at the township needs growth as far as business goes. They need commercial business because that is the one that's going to bring in the most dollars to the county and the township. I know that there was a statement made about that the owner in Pleasant Plain, of the Pleasant Plain Market, that if Dollar General went into this area, it would affect his business by 80%. Maybe it will, I don't know. But I question that number. Because to me, I think a lot of his business comes from hot and cold sandwiches, pizzas, which Dollar General doesn't offer. So if it's going to affect his business by 80%, I don't know. Maybe it will. And I also know that anytime you're in business, you can expect competition to come your way. That's just normal life. And this is why that I agreed to sell this property to them, because I don't particularly just want to give up my ground. But to me, this is a small investment in this community if it's going to bring in this kind of money. So basically, I'm for rezoning to get commercial business into Harlan Township. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You have any questions?
Yes, so with regard to, he commented about objections, and of course, we've been receiving objections. Are you familiar with the nature of the objections? So first, I want to go to the bodies that have, there was a split vote, there was a denial because it was an equal vote, and then there was a unanimous vote, and now you know that the Harlan Township trustees don't want it. Do you have a response to any of the points that they've made?
Well, first of all, the planning meeting was a tie vote, 7-7 with one abstention. And
Do you know what the discussion was as to why someone would vote against it?
I think that they, I really don't know. There was no discussion in the room.
Were you there?
Yes, I was there.
Okay, so there was no discussion about the zoning change?
No.
They just
No,
voted?
from the planning commission. Then the zoning committee had a meeting, and at that meeting, there were tons of people who stood up and said, we don't want a Dollar General store.
Okay, so when you say tons of people, do you know how many people were there that spoke?
I don't know, were you at that meeting?
I was there.
There was probably, yeah.
There was no room in this,
There were probably 50 or 60 people, you think?
there was no space in this room.
That's right, that's correct.
86.
Okay, so there was vocal objection to it, and were those individuals given a right to speak?
Oh, yeah, everyone was given, yeah, they were all given a right to speak.
Okay, so can you tell me what the objection was, and if you have a response to it?
Well, there was a myriad of objections. One of them cited that the crime rate went up in DeKalb County, Georgia. If you go on the internet, you can find the objections.
So there
DeKalb
there's a
County is
Dollar General-
vastly different than Harlan Township, I
Can
can
we
tell
say
you
there's
that.
a
It's
Dollar General that went into DeKalb County, Georgia, that is linked to increasing crime?
There was a study on that. I don't know how they arrived at that, but the crime rate in DeKalb County, Georgia is high. It's an eastern suburb of Atlanta, and it's the racial and economical makeup of that county is vastly different than even Warren County, and especially that. Other people complained that it would increase traffic on 132. Probably will, but it's a state highway. I'll let them
Yep, okay.
tell you their objections. I think the theme is we have a nice, quiet community here, and we don't want anybody coming in,
Okay, thank you.
basically.
All right.
And, you know, after they speak, if you want me to respond, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
All right? Anybody else?
Thank you. Okay, so I understand the township is here. Can you come forward, please?
I didn't realize we were allowed to speak today.
You, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I didn't realize we were allowed to speak today. I thought this was going to be an open and closed. Mark Shelton, Harlan Township trustee, 6724 Edwardsville Road, Blanchester, Ohio.
Thank you. I think there was a question about there was an assertion made that the trustees were favorable to this at one point and then changed their minds. I'm just wondering if you could shed some light on that for us and what the nature of your objections were.
Okay. I believe there's been some miscommunication through certain individuals. I'm not sure who, but at that original meeting that he spoke of, there was a gentleman there, a representative of Dollar General or a realtor, but he was wanting to know of property around that might be available and asked for names. And then he asked the trustees to go door to door to these people to see if they'd be willing to sell, to do his job, basically. And we just told him, no, that's your job, you know. And he was looking for somewhere on State Route 132. That's basically the gist of that. As
So
far as,
you all voted down then the
Well,
zoning application, the rezoning application?
yes, and that was probably, was that about a year? About a year later, after that initial meeting?
When they first contacted
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as, I'm not gonna argue the points of it, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and
they've
the
been
witness admitted
argued.
he wasn't
Right.
there, so he didn't know for
Right.
sure. But I guess what I'm more interested in is why the trustees voted down. That it's important to us that our township partners, that, you know, we understand where you're coming from. So that's, I'm just giving you an opportunity to share that.
May I intervene here?
Yes.
The township trustees do not vote on a zoning application.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
they-
right.
We just
This is
agreed.
under- Some of the townships have their own zoning, is probably what the commissioner's thinking about. Harlan Township does not, they follow
But they
county
took an
zoning.
action at all?
They didn't take
We,
any action.
we made an agement and then sent a letter over stating our
Okay, so-
disagreement with the
Okay,
rezoning of
so,
that property.
so all three trustees sent
Yes.
this letter in just opposing it?
Right.
So not an official action, but at least sharing your perspective?
Exactly.
Okay, and that was what?
We are not in favor of the rezoning. I believe it was at 2011, 2012, when Warren County did the rezoning. 2012. They did the rezoning, you know, of all the townships. And they specified specific areas that were for business. And that's where we would like to keep it. I mean, as far as fresh fruits and vegetables, we are a farming community with a farm markets and farm stands. I mean, there's $3 Generals, I believe, within 5 miles of the proposed location. that are closer than a Kroger's or anything else. I mean, I believe the residents feel that if they wanted convenience, they wouldn't move out to Harlan Township. They would stay closer to town where they have a filling station or a grocery store, where we are a rural farming community. And I'm not against capitalism at all. It's just, this is, not something that the community wants. It's not something that the Board of Trustees wants, so. But like I said, I'm not gonna argue the points of it. Yeah,
No,
it's been argued.
No, I appreciate your perspective. It matters to me to know what the perspective is of the township. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you're not interested, not you personally, but the township on behalf of the trustees want to keep the existing zoning and feel that that's sufficient for the community.
Yes, like I said, there are places in the township that are zoned business.
So I have a few questions. So for the public, there are certain townships, we don't, as a body, have authority over incorporated areas of the county, which are like cities. Townships we do, and some townships are home rule and can determine their own zoning. And in this case, Harlan Township is not that way, and therefore ultimately the zoning is determined by this body.
Correct.
All right, and which is why we're here today on this issue.
Yes.
But I will tell you personally, my view of zoning generally is that I respect the property owner's rights, but I also recognize the rights of adjoining property owners, particularly those that live nearby, particularly to the extent that if there's a change in zoning, if they've relied on the original zoning, and if there's a change that would cause a legitimate nuisance, or they have a legitimate right to object, that's significant to us. Also, as a body, as our commission president has said, we care about the township's opinion of the trustees, the political body that you're on, that is closest to your residents, as opposed to us as county commissioners that don't come from your township. We care greatly about your opinion, but ultimately that really, for me, it depends on what the rationale of the opinion is. So generally speaking, Mr. Young, who's not here today, and I wish that he were here, is favored, and we all favor this, and that is balanced growth in our townships. So we recognize that in order to bring in the money to fund the schools and to fund the township operations, and your money comes from real estate taxes. So you have an interest in having property with a higher rate in terms of what would be taxed to fund your operations, like your fire and EMS and any security services with police or whoever you're using. And then, of course, they've pointed out that this property currently is not producing very much tax revenue at all. In fact, it's so insignificant it does not matter. But that if the Dollar General goes in there, all of a sudden there's a much more substantial tax base. And so my question to you as a township trustee, and you're looking at your budget, wouldn't this benefit the budget of the township if this development went in? And I'm assuming that it would because of the great increase, relatively speaking. And then what's the countervailing issue that the township trustees feel overweighs that? Is it simply traffic, or that you've heard an objection from people who don't want to change the tone of commerce in this area?
Well, to start with, the tax revenue from that Dollar General would be very minute. It wouldn't offset. I mean, you have one set of turnout gear for a firefighter, that's $5,000, We're not gonna bring that in from a Dollar General in a year based on the assessed value, the commercial property, the split with the schools. Gonna touch base on the current levy that was failed. It was 5.7 mil, which we found where we could get it done for 2.7. So obviously, the voters thought that was extravagant. So, I mean, we can do with much less. But like I said, we have the areas that are zoned B2 that
What
can,
am I, tell me what I'm looking at here. I see Butlerville is the dark area, is that right?
Yeah, but this is older zoning. I was trying to compare the pre-2012 to current, to understand.
Michelle.
Oh, she's doing,
Okay, I'm just doing something, and you
Say-
were doing it back.
will this map show the current areas that are zoned
Yeah,
business?
we'll get that for you.
Like I said, we do have areas that are already zoned business
But
for
all
that
that's zoning
specific
and
reason,
zone.
so that they're not affecting residents or other, you know, businesses.
It looks like, I'm like, so I can't see well enough to know. How many residents are within, a mile radius of this, do you know?
And Michelle, you sent do you have that? You sent those out.
I don't know how many, but it's me.
Okay, we're gonna have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, and I believe, we have several.
So you don't know,
Exactly, no.
Sheldon, you don't know how many residents are
No,
within?
well, you're including the village of Butlerville within, it's right there against that,
And
which is another thing.
Butlerville's area just that small area that's dark,
Yes,
that's it?
yep,
That's the whole thing?
yep, it's a
And
small
is that-
village,
Is that an incorporated area? Is that a village?
Yes.
which
Okay.
does not have
Is
zoning.
that entirely zoned consistent with a B2 zoning?
I don't know.
All right.
I think
I've
one of
never
the
known that
council
they
members
have
are here.
zoning.
She could answer that.
What's that?
I think this woman is one of the council members.
No, you guys, it's kind of the wild, wild west in Butlerville, which is another,
That would not be the case.
which is,
It wouldn't be a wild, wild west. They would have some zoning regulations, and there's some restrictions on land use. None?
I don't believe
have
so. They are actually in negotiations with us through the building department for building, because they have no building, no zoning as far as I know.
Well, why wouldn't this Dollar General go in there then, if they can't go in this other location?
that was recommended, but
I don't know how much
This is where
vacant
they
land they
chose.
still have in Butlerville.
Okay, all right.
yeah, another.
So,
These are
Can
the
I
residents
maybe-
within 500 feet of the, or the addresses, the addresses within
okay,
500 feet.
so I take it, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, that after you received significant indication that residents in the area opposed it, that was, and all of us politicians care about what our residents say and our constituents say, that was important to your decision-making with regard to expressing an objection to.
We take
to us.
everything into account, yes.
Okay. Besides that, do you know of any, is it simply traffic, increase in, usage of the road for people going in and out of this store? Is that what the problem is?
There will be a traffic issue, well, not really, I wouldn't say traffic, but like the dog kennel across the road, the Coases have that. You're gonna have lights coming out of this parking lot right into their house and into their dog kennels, That's gonna be an issue. The increased traffic there will be an issue for them, being right across the road from that. Another concern of mine personally is that if this is granted, then eventually they'll try to go into Butlerville, what do you call it? Annexation into Butlerville there, because it's right there.
Is it already contiguous to Butlerville?
No, there's probably, about 300 feet between 400 feet? It's that little sliver right there.
Is it 30 or 40 feet wet? 30 or 40 feet? The gap between Butlerville and your access area?
That's 160 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it? Okay.
So that's obviously a concern in the future, that'll be annexed in
Wouldn't they have to have some contiguity to do that?
with Butlerville.
Yes.
Well, there's
Yes.
3 types of annexation.
Yes, they have to meet 5% contiguity, but all they gotta do is move the line, because this parcel doesn't exist yet. All they'd have to do is reconfigure.
Do a
and
handle.
I guess amend their contract, but that'd be easily done.
I guess where, what I'm trying to figure out is, so 10 years ago, when the new zoning went into place, or roughly 10 years ago, the decisions at the time were to move the developable commercial property to the north of town. And to relinquish, to change the zoning back to rural, that was previously, the best I can tell anyway, that was, you know, on this plan, on this here, you see these red parcels that I don't see on this one any longer.
Right.
So there was a decision made to remove these parcels as being developable. I suppose there was a desire to keep this more rural.
Right.
And any new development would occur to the north.
Right.
Of this then area here, is that fully built out? How, do you know? I mean,
That's pretty much farm ground.
this is still farm ground, so this is zoned B2 and could be developed for some reason into any of the
Right.
types of developments that are B2.
Right.
All right, so I want to go back to this issue of Butlerville. So I take it the current property owner owns the property between this property in red and Butlerville, is that right?
Yes, I believe Mr. Logan's
So-
correct
so
in that
he
section,
could
right?
simply
Between that property and Butlerville.
Change the outlines of this, do a cut-up of his property, have contiguity with Butlerville, and then request that Butlerville annex the property into Butlerville to get the zoning he wants. Why wouldn't he do that? If we were to reject this today, he could do that without any ability of us or you to change that result.
Well, he needs the 104 feet to get his equipment back into the farm.
Okay, so, yeah, but you can give him an easement to do that. That doesn't matter. And he's already got, doesn't he have access to, obviously, you can't do a transaction that prevents access to the road, but he's got access to his farm on a different road. To the, you see, I don't have a pointer there, but is there another road that he fronts?
He'd have to cross the creek.
He has to cross a creek there? So he's gonna wanna still have access to the road. That doesn't matter, he can still do that, because all he has to do is have an easement, doesn't he, Bruce?
Correct, if he sold it off,
Right,
yes.
so he can do that, he can accomplish all of that. So I'm just saying that if one of your points is that you're trying to not have this because you're fearful of annexation, it seems to me that actually a denial today will increase and enhance the likelihood of annexation. Because he's got a way to do that and keep his access to the road. I'm not suggesting that he'll do this, but I'm saying that he clearly, him and his real estate person who spoke on his behalf must have thought of this. And since it apparently is the wild, wild west over there, he can join that wild west show. And that's something that usually townships come to us and say, well, we'd prefer not to have annexation. Oftentimes they're opposing annexation, or they can, because you could lose your right to get the real estate taxes, which of course are not very significant, but you've already said even if this is rezoned, it's not that significant to you. I just simply point that out to you, is that it seems to me that this property owner could accomplish contiguity, keep his access to the road, and at the same time get the zoning he wants by simply going into a different jurisdiction that permits it. All right, I don't know if anybody's gonna have any comments about that, but that seems to me something he could be doing.
Is there any reason why, and this, I'm asking this not from this, I'm not asking you to answer this from the developer's perspective, in so much as the choices they make for, you know, their business development. But in terms of what they are proposing to build there in the other areas to the north that are currently zoned B2, is there any reason why they couldn't build this on what's already zoned for B2, either B1 or B2, I guess?
I don't know if those options were looked into or not. I mean, I'm not the
Well, I think
realtor.
that they're saying if I understood it correctly, that could be developed that way, but the person that owns the property is not willing to sell it for that purpose at this time. I think that's what they told us. And that doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future. It could happen in the future because that person could change their mind and sell. It's just that you've got a willing seller right now who could actually solve the problem by getting into a different jurisdiction that would allow the zoning. Okay, you know, and I really want to hear from the residents too, because that's, I think, the principal reason why there is an objection today.
Okay. And we did just have a Dollar General built in the corner of the township last year, so.
I get that. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
but
that's
glad
all
you were
right.
here today.
Yeah,
Thank
Mark,
you.
It's always good to see you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, who else would like to speak on this matter? Anyone else? Good morning, would you state your name and address for the record,
Yeah,
please?
Lou Coas, 8847 State Route 132. So my wife and I own and operate the Bark and Breakfast. And there are concerns about traffic in the area, additional traffic on the street. And the other issues that it brings is just the activity, I guess, around the area for the most part. But we're long-term residents of Warren County, Harlan Township, and we moved out there for the rural feel of the area. But that's always been an attraction for us. And we actually lived on the other side of 132, or 123, going towards Clarksville. And we were on an acre and a half, started the dog kennel business, and pretty much, you know, trying to expand the business. And out of respect for the neighbors, we found that property.
Are you on this map? Is your property
Yes.
on this map? Can you
We're directly
shut,
across the street.
You're directly across the street?
Yeah.
And you have a dog kennel there?
Correct.
And is the kennel provide grooming services and things like that?
She did grooming services early on, and she had someone that worked with her. And because of getting older, you know, the arthritis and stuff like that, she kind of backed off of that.
Okay, so you just now provide, if somebody puts a dog in your kennel if they're going on a trip or something like that?
Correct.
And that's pretty much what you do, and that's, how many dogs are in and out of your kennel a day?
Oh, it varies, depending on the time of year. Around the holidays, usually the busiest. Through the summer, usually full, probably, we have 10 kennel runs. And we can have up to probably 20, 25 dogs.
Okay, so tell me specifically, since you live right across the street from the property?
Correct.
And therefore you have an interest in how this develops, and I can understand that. Is your basic objection that you feel that this will generate more traffic?
Yes, well, there'll be activity there, you know, across the street.
Wouldn't that help
And-
your kennel? It'll bring people by that sees your kennel and maybe attracts business to you?
We don't advertise.
Okay, well.
And because of that, there's a lot of people in the township don't even know we exist.
Okay, so
And
I'm
there's a
trying to
reason for
understand
that.
what your objection is.
It's just the hour-to-hour activities, yeah, corridors, you know, closing, you know, people talking. The dogs, you know, with anxiety, they get to the point where they start getting, you know, all jacked up, basically, because they think they're going home. They think, you know, somebody's coming to get them. You know,
Okay.
Just trying to keep a quiet sense to the area. And that's a lot of the reason why we moved from the other side of 123. We
So
found this
This
property.
route, where does traffic flow generally? I mean, people, if you're living in this area, but you don't work in this area, because I imagine that most people that live in Harlan Township aren't employed in Harlan Township. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but they would go elsewhere for employment. Is
That's
that your
probably
general
mostly
sense?
true.
Okay, so everybody then in this area is going to get in a car and go someplace. Do they frequently travel this road to go in or out of Harlan Township from their properties?
I think a lot of the roads that are traveled are Mara Rossburg coming in from the,
Can you
north-
point that out? Is that on the map?
Yeah. So coming down Rossburg, right here, no crossover, we're going down 28 Blanchester, a lot of them cut down past the town, going to, yes, we're down to Butlerville to Morro Woodville.
Okay. So I'm saying that, so if most people are going to work from this area, are they gonna be passing your kennel in this area, twice a day?
Oh, I would say so, yeah.
Okay, so if they were gonna pass this area going to work twice a day, I'm not saying that this is what would happen, but for the way I travel, this is not a destination spot, even if there's a Dollar General there. But it is a spot that I would pass each day going to or from work, and that's when I would stop.
Right.
So it wouldn't increase traffic flow necessarily, it would just have somebody stopping there to go to the store.
Correct.
What's the difference between stopping or just passing through to you?
Corridors, people
Corridors?
talking.
Okay.
A lot of activity at the area. The other thing that I'd like to point out, when you come out of Butlerville, it's like a drag strip coming out of there because it's 55 miles an hour. And then coming up, there's a hill here. And from the other standpoint is a possible safety situation. With the
You
driveway
would like to
going,
change the speed limit if this goes in?
It's a state route.
it should be considered.
I mean, the state law provides for speeds, and it depends upon, obviously, a variety of things. So you're thinking that the speed limit by there is 55,
It is 55,
and that's by your current kennel?
correct.
Okay.
And
And it's a two-lane road, right?
it is. And the
With
speed
the
doesn't
berm.
drop down till Butlerville.
Yep.
Just right about in this area here.
The speed
to
limit goes
35.
down in Butlerville,
Yeah.
down to
To
35? Well, if they annex into Butlerville, they can change all of that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else would like to speak?
Hi, my name's John Baker. I live at 9921 State Route 132 in Pleasant Plain. I am a resident in Pleasant Plain, which is just about a mile, 0.2 from the site. I'm also a village council member for Pleasant Plain for the last 8 years, and a business owner. And I do happen to own the Plain Folk General Store right now in Pleasant Plain. Again, it's 1.6 miles from the site they're talking about. But I did want to just address, you were asking about what are some of the specific concerns that the residents have. And there was, my count I heard at this previous meeting was about 147. So it was substantial. But just to kind of highlight some of those points, first of all, as a resident, for those of you not familiar with the area, this is true rural country. There's the firehouse, there's the village of Pleasant Plain, which is just over a mile south, the village of Butlerville. It is true country. And as a resident, and we hear this from all the residents and everyone that spoke at that meeting, that's why we've come out to that area. That's why we purchased property. And that's why we're still see people moving in, because it has that feel. It's not a strip mall, You go a couple miles up to 28, and it's strip mall haven. It's awful. We're just far enough away from that we don't want to experience that domino effect. And I think that's one of the biggest fears, the biggest objections of the residents out there is that, okay, it's Dollar General now. So Dollar General,
you know, if you do the research as a failing company, it fails. We have now a vacant, business-zoned building in the middle of our country. What comes next? Vape shop, you know, those types of things. That is the specific concern, the domino effect that it could create in turning that strip of true country into a kind of a strip mall spot. Also, again, from the residents' point of view, it is very close to a well-documented, super dangerous intersection. It's been that way for years. And there is a hill, and I know that the state had to come out and had to do sightline tests and things like that, but even the fire chief of Harlan Township had come out and spoke at that meeting, and one of his biggest concerns was that that hill comes right off of that already dangerous intersection, and you know that's a concern of the residents. Also, there's no sewer out there, so I don't know how much that matters. You know, they would have to do their own system, which eventually goes into the ground, which eventually goes into the creeks. That's right next door. There's no infrastructure like that at all. The other thing is the light pollution. You know, when it's night, it's dark. And then all of a sudden you have this parking lot in the middle of all of this with the big, you know, halogen lights on 24 hours a day. That's an issue. The other thing is just the feel of the community. And it's not, again, several people have said, we're not anti-development, we're not anti-business. But just to kind of point out the white elephant in the room, this is a Dollar General. And it's that specific business that I think is a tripping point. I am a business owner. It's not about competition. I agree. Competition can be good. It's not about that. It's about the community feel. And again, going back to the 2012 zoning and the Regional Planning Commission comprehensive plan, the kind of businesses we want to see are the family-owned, mom and pops, you know, that fit in the community, and this one just doesn't fit. So also, just on a side note now, again, as a council member, the Village of Pleasant Plain, mile and a half away, we also, in our meeting, and it's documented in our minutes, voted to be against, to oppose this, even though, you know, there's no legal teeth to it. But as the Village of Pleasant Plain Village Council, we did vote to express our opinion against it.
Thank you.
But I have a couple of questions. So you're on the council of?
Village of Pleasant Plain, yes.
You're on the village council, and you also have a commercial store.
Correct.
And what does your store sell?
Pretty much the exact list that the gentleman put up before, just on a smaller scale. In addition to that, we do prepared foods. He was mentioning pizzas and hoagies and those types of things. We do that as well.
Does your store attract the kind of negative issues that you, being a mile and a half away, that you're thinking this would attract?
Our store does not. A couple things about our store. There's been a store in our building since 1899.
Go back to my question. Why isn't your store attracting the kind of traffic? Because I think what you're really saying is that this will increase traffic, and that's the problem. Is that right?
No, not necessarily. It's more about the community feel.
You're going to have to help me with that.
Okay.
What is that community feel?
Well, the community feel is that.
Because of it, well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
is it because it's not a, you know, a single-owned mom and pop type of shop, is more of a national chain? Is that the difference?
That is part of the difference. And it's also the nature of the chain as well. You know, just to give an example, and again, I'm not here to promote my business. It's not about the competition with my business. But we live, you know, the owners, me, live 200 yards from the business. So we're there, we care. The farmers who own all the land and farm all the land, they're there, they live there, and they care. And we also, you know, we support the fire department, we support the schools and all those things. So again, we don't want the mega corporations coming into what we feel is our, you know, community.
So if this were not Dollar General, but was owned by a private property owner, say it's by the gentleman who currently owns the farm, opens up a store that does exactly what Dollar General sells, that would change your opinion about it?
I think it's a different conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate you being here. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Julie Dowdy. I live at 8719 Mara Woodville Road, and you're going to have to forgive my voice. Public speaking terrifies me.
Well, don't be terrified.
You're doing
We're
great.
really
It doesn't,
friendly.
it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't
And
help.
even the questions that we ask, none of it's meant to be difficult.
yeah.
We're just trying to get the facts.
It's just shyness. So, this is me. Right here. Sorry. This is me right here. This is my land. This is where I live.
Is that
As
a
far,
farm?
I'm sorry,
Is
what?
that a farm?
It is not a commercial, I'm not zoned.
You're not on a call.
I'm not on COF, correct.
Okay, all right, good enough.
I do have a rather significant garden and goats, and, I mean, if somebody wanted to put it in COF, it would take them paperwork.
Okay.
It's set up as an existing farm, I'm just not in COF.
Okay, good enough. But
so-
that's where you live.
This is where I live. This, by the way, is not where Mr. Logan lives. He does not live adjacent to this property that he wants to put this commercial enterprise in.
Is there a residence on that property?
There's a little, like, I don't know, there's a little, like, small building with a smiley face on the roof. I don't know what that is.
Okay,
Is it? It's a little cottage. Does anyone actually live there? No, okay.
okay. good
So
enough.
it looks like a hunting
All
camp
right, but
kind
you
of thing.
live in that location?
I
that
live
you
in this
pointed out.
location right here.
Okay, and then you go out to what street? Where
I
do
go
you
out to
farm?
Mara Woodville, and yes, we do drive back and forth on this road.
So when you go to work, you're gonna drive on that road?
When
going-
I go to work, I drive down here, I drive this way, and I drive this way. And then I
when
come
you
back
home, you come the same way?
like that, yep. And I'm one of the people who stood up at the last meeting and said, hey, I didn't know that was a kennel. I didn't know it was a kennel. I've lived there 20 years. So they talk about rezoning being.
Well, you probably didn't have a dog that you wanted to put there.
No, but also, here's the thing. I can see the headlights on this road. Okay, so if he puts that in, those floodlights are going to be right in my yard.
Are we talking about?
Dollar General is
car-
going to have
car
floodlights on their
traffic?
parking lot,
Okay.
and that light is going to be in my yard. Okay, I can see, line of sight, it looks like a long distance. This is nothing. This is an open field. If he continues to farm it, it will be an open field. Those lights are going to be in my yard. Those lights are going to be in their business, and their dogs are going to be barking. The doors are going to be opening and closing and slamming. There's going to be barking. Okay, this is going to be loud. There's going to be 20 dogs barking because there's shadows, because raccoons are getting in the garbage and casting shadows, because people are opening and closing doors. It's not the increasing traffic driving by, it's the increasing activity that goes with that traffic. Although, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot, because this community does not want this rezoning. We do not want this store. We are well supported by Mr. Baker. Rezoning requests are supposed to serve a need in the community that is not being met. I think my community has made it very clear that there is no need in our community that could possibly be met by Dollar General. So I feel like that, it should be a non-starter right there.
Well, have you looked at the list of items that they're gonna sell at
Yes,
this
and,
store?
and anything, I mean, Mr. Baker already provides most of those. He's also local, responsive to the community. If I went to him and said, hey, there are no apples available to me nearby, which is ridiculous because Kroger delivers. I did one time, I was in the middle of baking a birthday cake and I realized I didn't have any icing, and I was able to go to his store and get the icing and come home while the cake was in the oven, which was very convenient. But if I said, hey, we need apples, we don't have apples, he would get apples. That's what being a local community-based business is. If I went to Dollar General and said, hey, the toilet paper brands that you carry are really bad, could you carry a different brand? They would just laugh at me. They're not going to carry a different brand. They carry what Dollar General carries all over the country. At all those sites they already have. I mean, it's closer for me to go to Dollar General than it is for me to go to Kroger. I don't go to Dollar General, I go to Kroger. Because Kroger per unit is less expensive. Dollar General takes advantage of smaller sizes and higher prices for what they carry to make money off of people who can't afford to buy a lot at a time. So they're drawing down in the community. So honestly, I think we'll end up with a vacant building. As far as annexing into Butlerville, yeah, that's another fight. We'll be there.
Well, that
I
won't
mean-
be a fight that I necessarily you can stop, though.
Oh, here's the thing. If you approve this, we get the Dollar General, which we don't want, which doesn't serve anything, which turns rural land into what will probably eventually be a vacant building. If you deny it, yeah, maybe he then recuts this and goes to Butlerville, and we have to find out what how the zoning works in Butlerville, which I guess would be a good civics lesson, because really, I don't know. When we bought our house, we were told it was anything anywhere by the realtor. And since we just wanted a house and it was already there, we didn't really worry about it. But yeah, this community will be there to fight that again.
So I'm trying to find out what your objection is. So I think that you
So-
mentioned the light pollution.
Light pollution, also, I think it's gonna be a vacant building. I think it's gonna be a blight. There is also plenty of space in Butlerville, which, to be perfectly honest, would benefit from redevelopment and is already zoned. I mean, there's some areas, people are there, there's some areas in Butlerville on 132 that do not look great, that our zone could be used for business, that having them redeveloped, even to a Dollar General that we don't want, would be an improvement.
So why
There's
would?
basically a junkyard at the
Well,
end
why
of
would
my street.
Why would moving the Dollar General into Butlerville, which is just adjacent, why would that not have the same objection you've got to this property?
Well, it would be away from the kennel, so it wouldn't be the additional noise pollution problem that it's gonna create for the kennel and for Circle Tail. Just because, I mean, the dogs are already there and they are gonna react to people slamming car doors, starting and stopping engines, the additional lighting, so it would be moved up away from that. That's the primary issue that would solve. The issue of the fact that we would have a Dollar General we don't want, that wouldn't be solved, but at least when we had an empty building, it would be an empty building in a place that already wasn't working well. So again, would need to be redeveloped, but that happens. $30,000 a year doesn't pay for a fireman. The fire department came to the last hearing and talked about the additional impact that having that particular building, the building of a Dollar General, the way they manage it, the needs of it, would have on our fire station. It would be a significant drain on our community resources.
Okay, so the Harlan Township trustee didn't mention that.
I realized that he didn't. We didn't know we were going to be allowed to speak, so I don't think a lot of people are prepared. I've been sitting there taking notes and panicking.
We don't have to panic. because
You're doing just fine.
Yeah, really. I'm just trying to figure out what the issues are, that's all.
So, as far as the additional money for schools, we're in Little Miami School District. The taxes for those schools come from a huge area. It was stated by another realtor, and this is hearsay on my part, that he had been looking with a commercial client who had been told that the Shiloh Road Dollar General was going to be available soon because it was going to be vacant when they built the one in Butlerville. So there's your school system, it just moves. I mean, they're not really increasing the school system taxes. Also, as far as taxes, we have done significant work on our property and our home. Our property taxes have gone up quite a bit. That's okay. I want to support the schools. I want to support the services. I feel good about where I live. Property values, after Dollar General goes in, go down. Again, we had real estate agents come and present that at the last hearing. It's also seems kind of obvious to me. It made sense when they did it. So your property values go down, so your property taxes are going to go down. Believe me, when I've got floodlights in my backyard, I'm going to be contesting my property taxes and my property values. And this right here, I'm glad that it's a farm. I would love to have it stay a farm, but it's currently zoned so that it could be a neighborhood. So if he wants to increase property tax values, retire from farming and put a neighborhood in there and let people build some nice houses and pay property taxes and be happy to live out here. I mean, I'd rather not. I like it being a farm, but that kind of makes more sense to me. It goes better with the character of the area. You have people who are invested and committed and not Dollar General, which is not invested or committed to our community. These people, again, pay property taxes. I would expect their property values are going to go down, so their property taxes should go down. I don't think tax-wise this is going to help us at all. I don't think it's even should be even consideration. This intersection, I raised 3 kids in this area. This is a dangerous intersection. It has been redone with stoplights, with stop signs with flashing lights on them. It doesn't help. We have a lot of, I like the flashing lights, I like the additional stop signs, but I sit there because unfortunately, we have a lot of teenagers. And some of them remember that there didn't used to be a stop sign there. And it's 55 miles an hour, and some of them aren't real good at stopping distance. And the whole time I've lived there, there have been teenagers over and over again off the road in this intersection. There have been accidents in this intersection. And right here, this is the bottom of the hill. Now you can see cars up here from there. You can't see cars down here. So I taught my kids, said, you watch up here, okay? You see that car, and you count, and you make sure there's enough time between when that last car you saw goes by and there weren't any more cars before you cross that intersection. Because if that car is down there and you start crossing that intersection, you won't make it. So if somebody pulls out a Dollar General and decides not to respect that stop sign, you won't make it. You'll get hit. I mean, the car is hidden in the ditch, in the hill. It just is. And you can't move the hill. You can change the speed limit. Maybe you can put a stoplight in there. I don't know what it costs to put a stoplight in. That might help. But I don't feel like it's worth it. I don't feel like, I mean, it's like the old lady who swallowed the fly. Maybe we should just not swallow the fly in the first place? It seems like that would make a lot more sense. So they were saying that Mr. Mason wouldn't sell to them. I mean, I think the current comprehensive plan is working great. Mr. Mason doesn't see a need for them there. He'd think we're better off with his farm. They're not able to offer him anything that makes him want to sell. They're not able to offer us anything that makes us want them to be there. Could Mr. Logan get rezoned and put a business in there himself? Again, he's going to need to be rezoned, but yes. Again, he doesn't live here. It's not his neighborhood. It's not really his community as far as his residents. Let's see. I had a lot of notes. They argue about jobs. They provide a couple of jobs that actually don't allow you to, if you look at Dollar General employment nationally, a lot of Dollar General employees qualify for services. People don't want those jobs. I mean, they don't provide you with a living wage. People don't show up for them. They have high staff turnover because they're miserable working conditions. So yeah, they're saying they're offering us convenience and that they think they would be successful. I think that they just have a lot of ability to gamble on different locations, and they're hoping this one will pan out for them. Let's see. I think that's pretty much all I have that I wanted to say. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, my one other thing. Because people didn't know that they were going to be able to speak, and because you are meeting during a work day, I think that's had a significant impact on who came out. But this, I mean, we don't want it.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of correspondence, so just because folks aren't here doesn't mean they haven't been able to register their objection either.
But that's a valid point.
Yeah.
I mean, we get the fact that frequently, if there's a lot of public interest, a meeting, and to explain to the public, we have meetings at 9 o'clock on Tuesday mornings because a lot of our work involves our other county offices that this is a very convenient time for them. So when we're interfacing with the other county offices that we deal with and with their employees, this is a convenient time. But we also periodically have a meeting on Thursday evenings, which maybe it would be worthwhile for us to have open this up and have a meeting on a Thursday evening so we can allow people to come after 5 and express their opinion if there's something different about what they might express than we've heard this morning.
Anyone else wishing to?
Good morning. I'm Sue Bennett. I live at 7440 Starkey Road in Pleasant Plain.
You can pull that down even more if you like.
I'm sorry.
You can pull that down
There
even
you
more.
go.
Okay. 20-plus year resident at the current location and picked it because it was rural. But basically what I wanted to express today is I really hope you as commissioners truly respect the opinions that have already come to you before this meeting today. The Regional Planning Commission recommended denial. The Rural Zoning Commission, probably people you appointed to those boards, or to that one anyway. I know the regional is different, but clearly recommended denial. I was in attendance at that meeting, and I think Mr. Baker's estimate of the people is very accurate. I mean, the room was full. I mean, standing room, each sides of your sitting areas all across the back. So I think it's clear that the people in our area are not in favor of this rezoning. We're not anti-business, but this business in particular does kind of hit a sore spot. The stores that are near us are often understaffed and closed. I just don't think it's a quality employment opportunities in our area. Anyway, there a couple times it's been closed when I've gone there, and clearly time that, wasn't 10 o'clock at night, it was 6 o'clock.
So how far away from this property are you located?
I live south towards 28, shoot an arrow, probably a mile and a half.
Okay, and so what is it that is your issue specifically with rezoning to allow a Dollar General in this location?
Well, I chose to live in our direction for the rural nature of our area. It's not that we're not anti-business. Again, we sore spot with that particular business based on experience with other local Dollar Generals, but it's just, we don't think it's a community-type business that.
Are you close to the other Dollar General? There's another Dollar General closer to her location? I can't remember. They said there were two others in the
There's Dollar
area.
General at Shiloh at 28, which would be further south.
How
There's
far
one,
away from that location are you?
less than 3-4 miles.
Okay.
And then there's one in Blanchester, there's one a little bit further south in Goshen as well. But anyway, my main point in wanting to speak with you was hoping that you would respect those opinions that came before you, including even the Harlan, Mr. Shelton spoke, the Harlan Township trustees clearly are not in favor of that. So my main point was hopefully you'll respect those and take those into great consideration when you make your decisions.
We do that, but I'm most interested in the rationale of the opinions. That's what they're based on. And because this is a private property owner that, generally speaking, has a right to develop his property, but I recognize that other adjoining and nearby property owners could have an interest because of their adverse effects that it could have upon their property or their quiet enjoyment of where they live, and that's what I'm most interested in finding out.
I'm not sure I heard all of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just interested to know specifically how this property's development as a Dollar General would adversely affect your enjoyment of your property.
Well, maybe not at home. I'm not going to see headlights like that lady who talked before me, but frequenting those areas, 132 Mora Rossburg Road, it's just, I think the additional activity would adversely affect us, and I think that it's not conducive to the rural nature that that's why we're there. That's why we're there. So I think I've said my major point, and hopefully you're going to respect the opinions that come before you. So thank you for your service, thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here today. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter?
My name's Meredith Pugh. If you could put the map back up there, I can show you exactly where I live. It's right here. There's my house and there's my barn. We've been there we this property over 30 years, 31 years, when my youngest child was away at college, and my husband and I bought this land, and we looked for a long time to get just what we wanted because of my horses and my animals. Now, that was a long time ago. I have lost horses, they've died, time goes on. And consequently, my husband died. I have one son living with me because sometimes I fall down. But this is just not helping. If you want to put in something, and I like the land there that the gentleman has. We always watch for when he's cutting the corn or whatever. And my cat likes to go over and catch mice. But not a Dollar General. If I want oranges and fruit and stuff, I can just go down 28 and go to Kroger. It's probably fresher there anyway. And if the gentleman wants to sell his property, that's his business. And I just would honestly prefer something a little bit better quality than Dollar General. I have friends all around in the area. They've moved there since then. I'm right next to Circle Tail Dog Training. And of course, you've already heard from Bark and Breakfast. That's right across the street. That's not a good place for Dollar General. So I just wanted to tell you our feelings. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter?
Good morning.
Morning.
James Wilkerson, 5590 Middleborough Road, Morrow, Ohio. 47 years, and I live about 4 miles away, up 132. I don't want a Dollar General there. I don't want a Dollar General anywhere, okay? Especially out in the rural area. It's just not what we do out there. We don't. When I moved out there 47 years ago and got married, I knew I was going to have to drive 6 miles to Kroger's. I knew I'd have to go get gas someplace else. I couldn't just go down to UDF on the corner. And I don't want any of that stuff there now. I don't like flashing lights at a bad intersection because we don't slow the traffic down, you know? Put a stoplight in maybe, but then you got all these people that live around that light that never had it before that now they have it because we can't slow traffic down. There's all kinds of reasons not to have this. I ask anybody sitting in front of me, do you want a Dollar General, 4 miles from your house? Do you want something that can go out of business tomorrow if it's there, and then you have to worry about what's going to go in that vacant building, or how long it takes to fill that vacant building? Do you want any of that? I don't want that. I know I'm getting old, but I still don't want that. I don't want the traffic running down my street at 55 miles an hour, but it is, and I raised 3 kids there. But you can't slow it down. Accidents happen. So why do we just go ahead and do this kind of thing when it's never been there before? I know it's progress, but we can have progress in downtown Morrow. We can have progress in Blanchester. You know, Dollar General had a store in Blanchester. It went under and they built a new one. And that building's still vacant. So let's be a little smart here and say, just because Mr. Webb wants to sell it, he doesn't necessarily have a right to sell it to anybody that's not going to be what the people want or need.
So where do you live in proximity to this again?
Up here.
Okay, and that's, you said 4 miles or so away?
4 miles. Mr. Webb's probably 3 miles away.
Did you ever live in this area, or have you always been 4 miles away?
I've always been 4 miles away.
Okay, do you know anybody that lives closer to this that you
Well, I know several people around there. I know I actually use the dog kennel.
Okay, so what is it that's your personal interest in something that's 4 miles from you?
I worry about what's gonna happen once that's there.
Okay, what does it
And-
happen, I wanna know how that would affect your property interests.
It would affect my life, period, because I'd have to drive by it every day. I don't like to see, you know, it's obvious that no one here knows where Butlerville is. No one has driven through Butlerville, or if you did, you didn't even recognize it to stop. Okay, Butlerville, and it's been there forever, okay? I don't know how long it's been there, but it's been there for the 47 years I've been here, and well, I'm 67 years old. Actually, I knew it was there when I was born, so, because I lived in Morrow. But there's not much in Butlerville, okay? And it has its problems. It has its problems with decay and everything else, just like any small town would have that doesn't have, but any business there is not gonna make Butlerville, you know, the community that you wanna move to.
Did you mention what your business is?
I'm retired.
Okay, do you have a business that you currently own, or you're not?
No, I am retired. I moved out, you know, I had this plan that when I get married, I'd move out to a place. I bought an old house, refurbished an old house, kept it the way pretty much it was when it was built in 1850. I'm surrounded by farmland that I don't own. And I thank God every day that the person that has that around me feels that it's just good the way it is. She doesn't want to sell it. She's had it forever. And I'm very blessed to be there because I only live on an acre. And I'm surrounded by 76 acres. But I'm close to the road, but that's okay.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't think there is anyone else.
Well, I'd like to hear from the applicant again.
But while you do that, I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll hold off until you get back. So you're gonna get up and say hi to me, but we're gonna let our commission president take a break here for a minute, so we're gonna just, so while this is going on, you know, folks, we're just here to listen, to understand your positions, and we try to make the best decisions we can, so.
This is my only copy. I'll want it back after you look at it.
Okay, thank you. And one of the things I'm gonna be asking you about, to prep you, I wanna know about, you know, and believe me, I've been around all sorts of zoning issues and objections, and it is not unusual to have a light objection, and I know there's ways to put the light down, there's ways to put screening up, so I'm gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, Dollar General, as a matter of policy, dims their lights
Yeah, hang
when
in
they
there.
close.
We'll wait. I was just alerting you to this question I was gonna ask.
Bruce, we're not gonna land this plane, just so you know. I'm out that Thursday. Any Thursday I'm out. I know. But I'm not. I don't think he is. Okay. Everything's going in there. Like, it's a totally different. No, 30 years from now. Oh.
You know, so.
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, well, a former king of England was once asked if he had any advice as he was retiring, and he said, never pass up an opportunity to go to the restroom. So, after that happened, I decided to do the same, so I'm sorry. So I have some questions for you, but I want to, Shannon, do you?
No, go right ahead.
Obviously, I like your response, but one of the things that I heard concerned light. And that's been something that, I was a former mayor of Mason, Ohio, and we did our zoning, and that frequently was a concern. And so I'd like you to address that point, if you could.
As a matter of practice, Dollar General dims the lights in their parking lot after they close.
What's your hours of operation?
I don't know.
Well, would you agree to me that you are open after dark?
Yes, absolutely.
And then do you do lights where you project them down as opposed to spreading them out?
Yes.
Have you ever put in screening to prevent light traveling outside of the area of your store?
I have.
And I'm not talking about the
I
store
have
itself,
seen
I'm
that
talking about
on
the
some
parking lot.
stores. I'll kill two birds with one stone here. The Dollar General stores that I'm familiar with, some have some screening, some do not. You could make that a requirement.
Okay. So we can.
And the ones that I
require
know
maybe
about.
mounding. Do they ever do mounding and then evergreen trees? Some trees that don't, have leaves that fall off and.
You could ask for that.
Okay. Would they be amenable to that? Would Dollar General do that?
I would think so. On a previous deal I did with Dollar General, they agreed to that.
Yeah, like when it goes, if this rezoning were approved, Bruce, then it goes through a planning process for which it would come back, where those sorts of, or it may not come back, it would go to planning, however, and planning would, consistent with its regulations around signage and lighting and landscaping, would it not?
That's what it'd be for.
I think
PUD,
Dollar
but that's not
General
good.
has studied
No,
that.
there's no subdivision of this land. It'd be a minor subdivision.
Right, and there's no PUD, so there wouldn't be any of that. We'd have to get that up front, I think.
But you can make those conditions, and
To
I
give them
think the
this.
recommendation originally from RPC staff it had no recommendations. Oh, that's right, it's just a recommendation.
To deny.
Oh, okay, all right, so straight zone,
Yeah.
so no, there would not be.
Right. So we'd have to do something like that. So now,
yeah.
I want to turn to something that is always a concern of people, and even though and I think it's been expressed today, and that is that they believe that your store does not improve the tone of commerce in the sense that they believe that this particular chain will actually reduce their property values. And I mean, you know, that's always a concern that we, people who own residents, care about how things are developing around us with regard to whether it's going to hurt our property values. Do you have any documentation with regard to, maybe somebody presented this, any documentation with regard to how this might impact local real estate value?
The quick answer is no, but the general answer is, as I stated, I live in Williamsburg. Williamsburg has a Dollar General, and across the street they have a Family Dollar store. Mount Orb has $2 Generals. Bethel has $2 Generals. Between Williamsburg and Batavia, there's a Dollar General store and another one in Batavia. They all seem to be doing well. In Williamsburg, they are going to close the store in order to build a bigger one. They're going to do a DG Market, and the people in Williamsburg are excited about getting it. I understand, I mean, these are good people. This is my third meeting up here, and they're nice people.
Well,
But we don't particularly, you know, all of us don't particularly like change. We're afraid of change. I have a question for the Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, and I shouldn't ask a question I don't know the answer to.
No, you shouldn't, because I can't answer it for you, unless the board wants me to answer the question.
Okay, my question, and maybe you can ask him. My question is, if you deny this zoning change because it's a national chain, and next year the same property goes for a zoning change to build a mom and pop business, would that be prejudicial?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but I don't think that, I think the relevant question, if there is a relevant question here, relates to whether or not this particular chain has some documented history of moving into areas and creating a decrease in property values. I've not heard evidence either way on that question.
You know, property values are booming in Claremont County, and I'm sure they are here in Warren County. And I think the addition or not addition to a Dollar General will make any difference. I really don't see it.
And I guess I should say, to me, if, I don't have a comment about Dollar General. If they meet the requirements of zoning, then they have the right, just like anybody else, to locate. I'm not gonna get into individual businesses. From my standpoint, the question before us is whether or not we would make a zoning change in order to accommodate it. And, you know, I just, to me, there's not been a whole lot of evidence presented that a zoning change is warranted, since there are other areas that are still open for development, and there was a decision made years ago to move this kind of development north of town rather than where it exists. So for me, the information about Dollar General, while may or may not be reflective of my personal opinion, isn't germane to my decision-making. I don't think there's been a case made at all that it should be changed, because this is a very, very rural community that, you know, is moving its limited development possibilities north of town. And everybody that then feeds into this, whose opinions that matter to me, that feeds into this board, have opposed it. So we could spend hours debating whether or not Dollar General is a good community partner. But I just don't think it's relevant to this conversation, as far as I'm concerned. That is not weighing on my mind of who or what Dollar General is.
One more quick point, basically a correction. The line of sight, and I handed Mr. Grossman that design, and it's my only copy. I apologize for that. But the driveway.
What is it? This is what you handed me.
Right. The point is, that's the design of the store and the parking lot and the access and egress to the business. The driveway off of 132.
Around the store, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The driveway off of 132 is here. There's the kennel and there's the hill. The line of sight from the proposed driveway is clear. You can see all the way.
Do you know what the distance of the line of sight is?
I don't know. You can see clear down the hill from there.
Well, there are requirements with regard to.
Yes, and ODOT will.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming they're going to opine about that because they have specific regulations about line of sight to hills and things.
Exactly, but the line of sight there is good. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say.
Okay, so your opinion is that at off hours, the lights get dimmed. And then during hours, your light can be directed down, and your property owner is amenable, that is Dollar General, who would be the property owner, is amenable to doing mounding and vegetation that would block.
Yes, they have done that in other locations.
Okay, so what is and you don't have any information about impact on the community with regard to property values?
I don't see it affecting property values one way or another.
Are you going to be doing some sort of a traffic study with regard to this? Or do you know what kind of traffic Dollar General brings in?
There may have already been a traffic study presented. Well, if we get the zoning change, then it'll go to ODOT.
All right. Bruce, is there anything else that we should ask him about?
In these type hearings, I think it would be helpful in the future, especially if you're going to contemplate doing this on a Thursday night, when the screens, someone's not asking the screen to show some particular slide. On the slide, we should constantly keep the criteria that the Board of County Commissioners or any other body it comes before, that they have to consider. For example, at the Rural Zoning Commission hearing, when folks get up and have their children or even adults testify that nothing more than we oppose this, that's not helpful. What's helpful is the review criteria. So maybe what you heard today, you didn't hear a lot of specific testimony today that goes specific to the review criteria, but you did hear Commissioner Jones speak to several of the review criteria in her statement previously. If folks knew what the review criteria were and they could get up and testify and relate their testimony to the review criteria, that's helpful. Whether someone likes or doesn't like Dollar General is not helpful. It's not a review criteria item. So if we could possibly put that back up on the board, so if there's any more testimony or commentary, so to sort of answer this gentleman's question previously, that I said I wasn't going to answer, the commissioners aren't making a decision on whether Dollar General is a good corporation or not. They're making a decision based on these factors. There's 2 pages of factors. And so whatever you do, if you decide to go ahead and take a vote, I ask that you consider those factors, just like Michelle told you when she presented earlier that the Rural Zoning Commission made its decision based on factors A, B, and D. She also suggested there were additional criteria to consider were F and G, that because it was relevant to this particular application. Not all the criteria is always going to be relevant to an application, but she had assessed that F and G were also relevant. But certainly A, B, and D was relied on by the Rules Zoning Commission. And then one more thing I'd say to you is, as to your comment, Commissioner Grossman, about the light, the zoning code regulates that. So there is provision in the zoning code that will require Dollar General, should this be approved and they move forward with the development, to regulate light to where there is no light nuisance beyond the boundaries of the property. That's a zoning code requirement. So even though there's no conditions per se, they do have to comply with the zoning code. And then one last thing, just to make sure we're clear. This gentleman is representing Webb Logan, the applicant. He is not a representative of Dollar General. Dollar General was at the Rural Zoning Commission hearing. I recall they may have also been present at the RPC meeting, but they chose not to be here today.
Do we know why
I
they chose not to
represent,
be here?
I represent both. Technically, I represent both.
But you
I was
can't
asked
answer
by-
questions for the company.
I was asked by Cardinal Realty to find some property. And when I approached Mr. Logan, he agreed to consider a deal. And as far as representation, they have their real estate attorneys at their home office in Tennessee. But there was a conflict with the other fellow from Columbus today that he could not appear.
So this gentleman doesn't know the answers to some of your specific questions because he's not the Dollar
I don't.
General employee or real estate acquisition and development personnel from that company.
Do you know if Dollar General made an intentional decision not to be here today?
I don't think so. I think he had a conflict.
That's the problem? It was a conflict, otherwise Dollar General would have been here?
Yes.
All right, well, Jen, do you have anything else?
No, but I guess unless there's anybody else here to speak, I would recommend closing the public hearing.
The one thing that, I mean, I don't know whether it would be helpful to continue this hearing to a Thursday night to allow other residents or other people to express their opinion.
Well, I'm gonna vote it down, so I don't
Well,
think the residents care, but unless
Okay, well, so, well,
it's split and you need to.
No, I don't know if it's split or not, but because of that, you already understand that today, if we were to take a vote on this regardless, it's gonna be denied. And so, the only question I've got, and I'm not as adamant as, and we haven't yet conversed among ourselves, you've heard our questions about where I stand, but what I stand on doesn't matter, because it's gonna be denied based upon our president's statement.
Well, and I let me just say, out of respect to you, Commissioner Grossman, I think closing the public hearing is still prudent. I suppose if in our deliberation, we could choose, unless Bruce tells me we can't, to not render a decision today, or must we render a decision today if we close the public hearing?
You can close the public hearing. You don't have to render a decision today.
Can we
but,
reopen the public hearing, though?
I suppose you could, but then we'd have to give notice if you
Yeah,
did
right.
that.
So, I mean, but does it require unanimity to close the public hearing?
Yes.
All right, so, I mean, I would I would prefer not to close the public hearing because I want to give other residents a voice. And I'm suspicious that I'm going to hear the same things. But I will tell you, if it's appropriate for me to comment, what my concern is. So for those residents who don't like this, I'd like to hear more specifics. But I also feel that it's highly likely that this particular property owner is going to redo his boundary lines, put in an easement to allow him access to the road, and create contiguity with this neighboring community that we were told had a Wild West zoning. And then be, then there will be an annexation into that community, and they'll get the zoning they want, and they'll put this in, and we won't have any say over it any longer. And I'm wondering, Bruce, what is to prevent, is there anything that would prevent them from doing that?
No.
So, and that ends with an absolute right of them to do this, to create the contiguity, to then go and request an annexation and to obtain it. And we don't have a representative here from this what is it called again?
Butlerville.
Butlerville. They're not here today, are they? No. So we don't really know what's going to happen there. So I'd like to know whether, since that's such an obvious resolution for Dollar General and the property owner to solve what they clearly want, but not necessarily what you all want. And I take it that the village limit, their territory, does it cover any of the people that have spoken today? Are they in Butlerville? Anybody? Okay, all right, I get it. So nobody from Butlerville's here. So, again, does this make any difference to you, Shannon? I mean, and they could have a completely different opinion in terms of screening, what they would want to do. I think we can block off the light pollution issue.
Yeah,
But
I hear what you're saying, and I, in some instances, may be willing to entertain that. I think, though, with this particular piece, of where we are, and with the objections of everybody being shared, as well as the considerations that are before us, mainly, I would identify here A, B, E, and F, and maybe even D. I just don't know that, it's like, I don't want to entertain something which on its face seems to me something I wouldn't support on the event that something in the future will happen. I think, that's not, in this particular instance, germane. So it doesn't make a difference to me, not because I don't appreciate that you're trying to find some compromise if you believe the Dollar General is going to happen anyway. So how can we encourage something negotiated that makes it better to residents? I have no reason to believe that an annexation is imminent, though there's nothing to stop that from happening if Dollar General wanted to invest the resources in a community for a fight to, but what's before me just seems so clear from my standpoint. So nobody has asked, the company hasn't asked, the residents haven't asked, nobody has asked for us to continue the hearing for more testimony. Based on the decision-making criteria, my instinct is just to be a no. But and I don't think that there's anything that is gonna change that, especially since Dollar General is not here and has not, in their absence, even made a request that we continue because some new evidence is gonna be brought forward that would override what two other bodies have already determined. So it just doesn't make a difference to me. This is a very rural community. It is not like places in parts of Turtle Creek Township or even Union Township that are really in the midst of a lot of redevelopment for which, you know, we can see in my lifetime, these farmlands are gonna be, you know, developed out. It is going to come into this community at some point. I just don't think it's going to come anytime in my lifetime. It's going to be the last. And so I'm just not, it just doesn't change my calculus to sort of look at this and say, gee, it clearly, in my view, should not be approved. But as I said, if you have a different view and we want to, and you want Dave to be a decider in this as well, that's another matter. But in either case, I would still recommend closing the public hearing since none of these folks are asking or sharing that there's some new evidence to come forward.
All right, so I'm gonna ask the real estate agent who's representing both the owner and Dollar General apparently. Is there anything that Dollar General, do you know, would speak to this project that you've not already mentioned? And in particular, I'm interested to know whether there has been evidence with regard to the adverse impact on a community and its property valuation of moving Dollar Generals into a community. Do they have anything specific to say about that? And I do believe that is a criteria. I mean, the general criteria here, and I'll read this to you all so you know this. There's a reviewing criteria, section 1.304.5.
It's up here on the screen too.
It's up there on the screen, okay, and it says, the beginning says, the approving authority, which is us, shall review the proposed zoning amendment in the interest of public health and safety as well as the public convenience, comfort, prosperity, or general welfare as applicable by considering the following factors. Then you see a number of factors in the next. There's another set of factors after that, but that includes factor A, is the proposed amendment consistent with the purposes and intent of this zoning code? B, does the proposed amendment deviate from the suggestions of the Warren County Comprehensive Plan? C, is the proposed amendment justified because of changed or changing conditions of the surrounding area since the time the current zoning designation for the property was established and has assumptions on capital investments, road locations, population trends, land committed to development, density, use, or other elements changed to justify the amendment? D, is the proposed zoning compatible with the present zoning, nearby uses, and the character of the surrounding area? And then E, is the site suitable for the uses to which it has been restricted, or does the current zoning deprive the site of all economically viable uses? F, how long has the property remained vacant as zoned, and is it zoned different from an adjacent properties? G, are there available sites elsewhere in the county that are already zoned for the proposed use? H, are public, central, sanitary, sewer, stormwater facilities, roads, and other public facilities available, and do they have adequate capacity to serve allowable uses? And then the final one is, will approval of the amendment result in existing land uses, parcels, or structures becoming non-conforming or somehow result in conflicts with any provision, restriction, or requirement of this code? So does Dollar General, do you have any other comment about any of those criteria, sir? That's to you.
You know, the applicant is Mr. Logan. It is not Dollar General. I mean, that's the elephant in the room, obviously.
really, the only reason why this is coming up is because you were asked, and maybe another real estate agent were asked to find a location for Dollar General in this area. And this is the location that you identified, and you have a willing seller and a willing buyer, but it is contingent upon a change of zoning, correct?
Yes, the contingency is to get the zoning changed.
And you've had
And
a lot
and
of-
I reiterate, there's just nothing to the north of Butlerville that fits Dollar General's criteria that is for sale.
All right, and if.
At a
this-
price you're willing to pay.
Well, yes. You know, they're not going to buy 87 acres for a 3-acre.
I'm not gonna,
Project.
I mean, their business decisions are their business decisions to make, but there is property that is zoned where this would be, an allowable development.
I'd like to know where it is.
What's the population
It's
of?
on this map.
I'm sorry. What's the population of Butlerville, do we know?
About 300.
About 300. And it does its own zoning?
I don't believe that they have any zoning.
That's why we call it Wild West. You get into Butlerville and you can do anything like this you want?
You know, on one of the maps, and I don't know which one it is, it may have been on Google Maps, but I don't know. But I saw B2
To the north.
to the, in
Yeah, we saw that.
Butlerville.
That was on the, that's not existing zoning, it's proposed zoning. Is that right, Bruce?
In Butlerville, I have no idea.
No, this
Butlerville
is-
was not, I'm
this
talking
is-
about.
The
north
other
of
was
Butlerville.
the flume, the future land use map.
That was not an
That's what
actual zoning, it was
We
proposed zoning.
we looked at it on the computer, and you can see B2, you could see B2 zoning along 132 to the north of town. Just to the north of town, there are several plots that are already zoned B2. That was a change that was made from the 2011 or 2012 rezoning, and they removed the zoning to the south of town, and instead the decision was made that the future development would be in the north of town. I don't know anything about those parcels, but there are parcels that are there.
But is it that the zoning now exists, or is it on the comprehensive plan for proposal to change the zoning to B2? I didn't understand that it was already existing.
So I can see on this where there are parcels that are zoned already B2.
Terrible.
It's,
There?
so you can see those.
We must not have a slide for
There isn't a slide, that's why I had to, and there is a slide on the future land use where it shows commercial 1 and 2 on the plan.
Yeah, but that's the plan, that's not necessarily the current.
But
No,
those
but it's a future
properties
land
not,
use
those
plan.
properties are not for sale.
Yeah, I can't speak to what a willing, a property owner is willing to get for his property. That's a private transaction. I just know that it's it's an eligible type of development. And on the future land use plan, Stan, is this right? Like, I'm seeing these red 1 and 2 for commercial development north of town. So,
Actually, in the applicant's PowerPoint, it's in there. In their PowerPoint.
in their PowerPoint, thank you.
That's, if you could change the
This, we were struggling with the iPhone, trying to
I
look
know.
on the iPhone. So I can see the comprehensive plan. There is, identified 2 parcels of land north of Butlerville as areas for commercial development. then,
That's the comp plan that's on the screen now.
oh,
And that's in the developer or the applicant's presentation. But that's based on the comp plan. That's the flume I'm talking about.
If
What
they-
the existing zoning is, do you think it's in here as well?
That's what I didn't know.
I
thought-
don't see
thought
the
that was-
existing zoning in here.
I didn't think it was existing zoning, but Bruce, if
But
they,
it's still the,
if they annex into Butlerville, they could annex into Butlerville under circumstances where the real estate taxes and the benefit of those taxes then go solely to Butlerville and no longer go to Harlan Township. Is that right?
No, the township trustees would not consent to an annexation, so it would have to be a type 2 annexation. Consequence would be that the property stays in the township for collection of the real property taxes, the township's portion, in perpetuity. Then the other element is, that's unknown, is does Butlerville Council want this? And if they did, they have to accept the annexation, because unless it doesn't meet the type 2 criteria, you'd have no choice. You'd have to approve it, this Board of County Commissioners, that is. And then it would be up to Butlerville to accept it. That's what we don't know,
Right.
because there's no one here on behalf of Butlerville.
And if Butlerville accepts it, is there a change in terms of how service would be provided to this property?
I wouldn't think so, because I don't think Butlerville provides any services.
Right. So from Butlerville's standpoint, there isn't any downside for them accepting the annexation, or necessarily a lot of upside, although they would get some benefit of the real estate taxes if it was annexed in.
Just the real estate taxes. I don't think they have a payroll tax, and I'm sure they don't in
Okay.
Butlerville.
All right, so, look, I don't know that there's any purpose in continuing this. I think you're gonna lose today, applicant, because you've already got that, but I'm willing to close the public hearing if there's nothing else to be done on this. I do believe that it would maybe be worthwhile to have David here, but I don't think that's necessarily gonna change anything. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
second, roll call.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes. So I look at this slightly differently than maybe my colleague does, so I'll start the conversation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I believe that there's a live option that this owner has, and that's to annex into Butlerville. And then we don't have any say in this zoning. And Butlerville will permit this in all probability. Now, maybe they won't, I don't know. I also have a very high view of personal property rights, and I believe that generally speaking, while this goes back to the 1920s and the U.S. Supreme Court decisions that upheld zoning regulations, because there was a live question back then as to whether or not governmental control of property uses in somebody's property was constitutional. They held that it was constitutional based upon notions of nuisance, and that is that a community has a right to impose upon a property owner who doesn't want to restrict his property in a particular way, but that they've upheld these based upon the idea that a community should have a right to regulate property, and that you shouldn't allow usages that cause a nuisance to the neighbors, and that they have a legitimate interest in that. And I recognize and I honor that. At the same time, I usually have a paramount interest in the rights of a personal property owner to develop his property as long as he isn't injuring neighboring people. And you've brought up, a lot of the people today have brought up issues that I think are relevant. You can see the criteria that we have to apply, that we're supposed to apply for determining any zoning change. I would be inclined to want to know what David felt about this, because generally I like to have development that is not all residential. This could go all residential, but in the current zoning, I take it that it would have to be limited. What would be the size of the lots in this area if they developed it all residentially? Do we know?
It's
on Two-
use, it's 5 acre density.
5 acre site.
Right. So 5 acres, the entire ground could be sold for 5 acre lots. And you would have, how many acres are on that property as a whole?
37.
37, is that it?
87.
87.
All right, 87, that's what I thought, it was much larger. So you could have a relatively sizable residential development here, and that's their other option ultimately. And then, of course, they have the option to annex, which they could do too, and then create the same thing. Any event, Shannon, do you have anything else to say about it?
No, I mean, I share your interest in private property rights and agree that, you know, I take that very, very seriously. But in the instance of a rezoning application, it just is, you know, I think that I'm not taking away the owner's right to develop the property under current zoning to something that actually is more in keeping with what the future land use plan as well as the current zoning is trying to do, which is if they wanted to put 15 5-acre residential lots out there, that is in keeping with the community standards to have a more rural area. So I think that the property right remains is still with the property owner. I just think this particular zoning is just not justified when I look at the criteria that I have to consider. And I think on several of these, I would vote to deny it based on at least A, B, D, E, F, and I actually think G.
Contrary to what the gentleman said, the criteria is the county, not within a mile or 2 or 3 of Butlerville, whether there's other sites available. So that's an appropriate criteria as well. And there was some testimony about H as well.
Yeah. So, I would be inclined to call for a vote, but like I said, I'd be.
Well, we already know how that would go. I mean, because you're gonna deny it, we know that it's gonna go down today. I'm just concerned about the annexation issue. And is there an adverse impact upon this community if it annexes into Butlerville, and that is an adverse impact on Harlan Township? And I take it would still be, though, they would still be collecting some of the real estate taxes regardless of the annexation. Okay. All right, I'll make a motion regarding this, and the motion, I guess, has to be a motion to approve it, and then we'll vote on it.
Do you need more?
You can make the motion either way.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter.
Approve, deny, or.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're
approve
making a
with
motion to approve it.
modifications.
Go ahead.
So.
Well, do we already close the public
We
hearing?
closed the public
I thought we
hearing.
did that already.
I just want to make sure that I understand what I'm voting on. We're voting to approve what was brought forward to us by the rural zoning, which is a denial, or I'm going to vote no on an approval of this.
As I understand the motion, it is to approve the application to rezone. That's
That's
the
right.
way
Okay,
I'm looking at it.
so you're going to make a motion to
Just
approve
because I
it.
wanted to put it up for a vote. that's
Okay. I will second that. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
No.
Mr. Grossman?
all. I also vote no too.
So it is a denial.
It is a denial.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Tiffany or Martin, do you have anything to bring forward for the budget? I know we're scheduled to vote on the budget next week when Dave is back in town, correct?
That is correct. We will
prepare and have that ready for you on the 19th, but we do not need the session today.
Okay, great. Anything else, Tina or Bruce?
I'll just mention that next Tuesday is also the ribbon cutting for the King Avenue Bridge at Peters Cartridge. It is on your agenda for, I believe, 10:30.
Okay.
So I just want to make you aware that it
We have a
it
quick
is on.
public hearing before that.
Okay. When have I heard quick public hearing before?
Well, it's a road name change.
Okay.
Oh, that's correct. The
Yes.
engineer is before.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
it should hopefully go rather quickly, so you don't miss the ribbon cutting.
Great.
since
Is
it's a
there
meeting or two.
a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
And yes.